building love of Israel, one sports fan at a time. IsraelSportsRadio.com. The biggest names in sports are all on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Our first guest is a former boxing champion. Let's listen to one of the highlights in his long 16-year career.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 12 rounds of boxing here at the MGM Grand, here are the score totals. Judge at ringside, Kamal Youssef scores at 114-113. Jerry Roth scores at 117-109. Jojo Guerra scores about 117-110. All three in favor of the winner and new champion, Jesse James Leija.
And of course, our guest, as mentioned there on the great YouTube clip, Jesse James. Welcome to Lewis Live. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. It's not too often we have a boxing champion. I want to start with that fight there because a very impressive victory over Azuma Nelson. At the time, he was a 5-year champion, had that reign 5 years in the featherweight division. Obviously, every boxer going into the fight has to have a certain confidence that he's going to win, but was there some nerves facing a champion of Nelson's caliber?
Well, there's always some nerves, but, I had fought him, I think, 6 months prior to that in San Antonio. So we had that draw. Initially, we had that first draw. But, knowing that you fought him before and how tough he was, that you get nervous fighting him the second time. And that was our second fight, and he always, he was always knocking people out in the second fight like he did Jeff Fennick and some other fighters. So I was really worried, but we prepared ourselves well, and we went in there fighting the best that we could.
Now, you have a great background. Not a lot of people know this because most boxers, when they begin as amateurs, they begin very young, sometimes 6, 7 years old, sometimes as teenagers. But your parents wanted you to wait to box after high school. Is that correct?
Well, they actually didn't want me boxing at all. My father was a fighter himself, and he didn't want us fighting. And at the age of 19, I decided that I wanted to try my hand at boxing. I got a little heavy, and I wanted to drop some weight. So, I started in my garage and hung up a heavy bag and was in there every day by myself working out. And then my dad saw that I was serious about it, and we went to the gym. And 2.5 years as an amateur, I made it to the 1988 Olympic trials, and I lost to the eventual Olympian. Then I turned pro afterwards.
Wow, that's an amazing story because I heard Joe Frazier got into boxing in a similar way. He wanted to lose some weight, and then became champion. Same with you, of course. And also, it's also, though, very rare to start boxing that late. I know Michael Grant started, he was 21. Did you look at that as a disadvantage, or did you say, hey, maybe I have some advantages here because I didn't learn something incorrectly, I didn't pick up some bad habits, I can kind of start fresh here at a more mature age of 19?
Well, that's true because I think when you're younger, I don't know. I think you haven't matured enough, and sometimes your brain isn't mature enough, and you don't learn certain things. And I just don't. I'm against really young kids getting hit in the head a lot in football or in boxing or anything like that. I just think it takes something away, and I think maybe that's what. I don't know. Maybe that's where there's more head trauma. You think about it: a 6-year-old getting hit in the head for so many years, and then when he's 20 years old, he's not going to have much when he turns pro. I didn't start till I was 19. My son, who's 20 years old, started last year as a fighter, and he's in college as well. But, he's 5-0 right now as an amateur and doing well.
Wow, congratulations.
He started a year ago, and, we're doing well with it. But I just think a kid needs to grow up and mature enough, and I don't know, I just think, and decide he wants to do it at that age. Sometimes when they're young, the parents kind of throw them into it at first, or the fathers, and they have no choice but to box.
Perhaps others will follow in your example because you had a very successful 16-year career starting later. That might be more of a key. I'm not sure if everyone out there is going to listen, but certainly something to look at. Now, I want to go into your name because you're born James, but you took Jesse James in honor of your father. Is that correct?
Yes, my father, my brother, and my grandfather were all Jesse.
Okay, so it's
that name. It sounds good, but it was really an honor of them.
Right. It's not because of the admiring of a gunslinger type of thing. It was more because of a family name.
Yeah, exactly. Just because I wanted to. I mean, my manager thought it would sound good and it would be catchy, but I was doing it more for my father. But it worked out for both ways.
Now you're certainly known for.
It was.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it was catchy and it sounded good, and people would remember just James from Texas as opposed to just a James from Texas.
Right, because your background, of course, Texas, and you fought your first couple of fights professionally in Texas. So that's a great point and a great relationship there. Now, you were known for being one of the more classier boxers that fought in your generation. You touched gloves not just at the beginning of the fight and before the 12th round, but before every round. Where did that classiness and good sportsmanship come from?
I just think it's my upbringing, and I know that boxing's just a sport. I mean, if the guy, I'm not saying I didn't do it for every round where I was in touch gloves with every guy, but I mean, if there was a mutual respect between both of us, we were going to do that. And sometimes there was the other guy doing it as well, and I would, I've always done that. It's not a gladiator where you fight to the death. It's a sport. It's not like in the Roman days, but it's still a sport, and we can't let people forget that it's a sport. It's not about I mean, the intent is to get hurt or to hurt your opponent, but not to kill him or to be mean or hate him. And, that's not what it's about.
Well said, and I've spoken with Yuri Foreman and Dimitri Salita. They actually say that if you hate your opponent, it can somewhat be a disadvantage because it takes your focus and mind away, right?
Yeah, I mean, your mind, when you're up, you have to be calm inside the ring. You can't be upset. When you're upset and mad, nothing happens. It's just like if you're going to hit a baseball because you're so upset, you're going to strike out. You try to hit, punt the football as hard as you can. You're going to miss it or it's not going to go very far. You have to be in control and you have to be calm, and things work out better that way. Now,
is that one of the more tougher things to do in the sport, is the controlled aggression? Because obviously it is a sport, it's an aggressive sport, it can be brutal and violent times, but like you mentioned, going in calm, that's the keys to success. So is that one of the tougher things, is to get to that calm point?
And you know what, that's time. It's just time inside the ring to relax and to be calm and to see the punches coming, and you get to flow through everything much better. And if you're upset and angry, you won't see anything. You're going to get hit just as much as you're going to be hitting, and you're not going to have the same power or technique because you're angry. So I teach my kids and I teach my fighters, you got to be calm inside the ring and almost tranquil, where you see things coming and not really have to think, you just react.
See, I really like that, because that's a good lesson not just for sports, but I think for life as well, that whenever you get
that's
too...
Right, exactly.
Right, we never get too angry.
That is life, too. I mean, you relax and go through life. Don't let life come at you. You go after it, and you stay mature, and you stay calm in rough situations, because if you panic in rough situations, it's going to get rougher.
Right.
And the same thing in fighting. You're going to get knocked down. Okay, get back up and keep going. In life, you get knocked down, you get back up, dust yourself off, and keep going and go forward and go with a positive attitude.
Right, well said. I really like that a lot. And I want to go to some of the opponents you fought, because you've been in the ring with simply the best. First, I want to start with Mickey Ward, and I find that fight interesting because you won that fight, and it was a little bit not your typical fight, because I understand that there was an accidental headbutt after the 5th round. Is that what happened?
Yeah, it was actually on headbutt, but the camera didn't catch it, so they were kind of questioning it. But
right.
As soon as it happened, I mean, if you look at the replay, as soon as it happened, I looked up at the ref and I asked the ref, watch his head, and that's when the blood started trickling down, and the ref stopped it. But they couldn't catch it on the replay, but they couldn't catch a punch either. So it was kind of a. So after the first round, Mickey Ward was trying to make the cut worse. And I was trying to win the fight by landing him and throwing more punches and trying to do everything I could, because I knew that if the cut got worse, it could stop the fight. And Mickey was trying to make the cut worse, but it was a headbutt, so he really wasn't thinking out of things about what happens if they stop because of a headbutt, and they stopped it, and I was ahead on the card. So
right,
and even after the fight, I said, you know what, the fight was just getting good. We should have a rematch. I don't care if I win or not, but let's have a rematch. We weren't able to make it. I went on to fight Costa, and he went on to fight Arturo Gatti, and
right.
Everything came out okay for both of us.
Yeah, I would say so. Costa, obviously a great fighter, but I find it interesting because Ward Gotti, that trilogy, one of the more famous trilogies in boxing history, and ended up being Ward's kind of last hurrah in the sport. But a big part why Ward was somewhat cautious early in that fight, especially the first fight, which in my opinion is the best of the three, was somewhat based on what happened in his fight with you. He didn't want to do headbutt Gotti, and also he wanted to start off somewhat early if it did happen, so he wouldn't get behind the cards. So you had an effect on one of the best trilogies in boxing history.
Oh, yeah. No, actually, we fought 4 times.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was talking about Gotti and Ward, that you had an effect on that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you said I had also. Well, no, yes, you're right. Yeah, because if that didn't happen, there would not have been a Gotti Ward.
Right.
If the fight with me didn't happen, if it would have been a draw, or I think what happened, we had heard that Gotti's people kind of liked the fact that I was kind of handling Mickey Ward, and it felt safe for him to fight him. But, different fighters make different fights, different styles.
And throughout your career, and I did a lot of research here for this interview and watching your different fights, most of the time, and I haven't saw a fight yet where you were the bigger man, went in as a smaller man. Again, and I'm a short guy myself, so hey, I relate, James. I know what that's like, but is it
hard, just like I
is it one of those things like, hey, you're not respecting my size, I'm going to make you respect my size, or is it one of those things where you can actually get advantages out of being the shorter man in there?
Well, I mean, my style of fighting was fighting on the inside, obviously not on the outside because we get picked apart. But so I had to condition myself, and I had to make sure that technique was going to be very important because I'm not going to. I didn't have the reach, I didn't have the speed, I didn't have the power, but I had the will and I had the conditioning to and the smarts to outmaneuver these guys, to outwork them, and to out hustle them, and have a better technique than them, and that pays off. I mean, all the guys, I look at the guys that I fought, Zuma Nelson, Mickey Ward, Arturo Gotti, Shane Mosley. You learn a lot from fights like that. I beat Francisco Bojado, who was supposed to be the next Oscar De La Hoya, and even Ivan Robinson, who beat Arturo Gotti twice.
Right.
I beat him fairly easy. So, it just sounds like fights, but I didn't take into account that I was shorter than them. I just knew I had to work a little harder than the other guys.
Now, you mentioned some of your impressive wins, Ivan Robinson, and obviously, like you started the interview with Zuma Nelson. Of all your victories, what is, in your opinion, your most impressive victory?
I think one of the most impressive ones was with Luis Espinosa. Of course, you have to throw Zuma Nelson in the bill. I fought him 4 times, so the 2 times that I beat him were great. Even the draw that I had with him was incredible in front of 60,000 people. But I had a fight with Luis Espinosa that was a tough fight. It was my first real big fighter, former 2-time world champion, a guy that can really punch very hard. And that was one of my good early on fights, as well as with Troy Dorsey as well.
I want to ask you about going into the ring with 60,000 people watching you. I mean, I get a little nervous if a couple hundred people are kind of looking at me funny.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't want to sound like a dumb question, but I have to ask, what is that like to be in front of 60,000 people? And it's not like your typical sporting event, like a baseball game, where they're watching 25 to 30 people play. They're watching you and another guy the whole time for an hour. What is that like?
It's very hard to explain, but the closest I can explain is when you first walk out, if someone turned on like bass speakers and just the biggest amplifiers around and just turn them on and you feel all that vibration go through your body, that's kind of what it feels like when you're walking out and everyone's cheering for you and yelling for you and you just feel that vibration. It just goes through your body. It almost like kicks you back. It's so strong and then motivates you. But when you're in the ring, it's on and off. It's like a switch. Someone turning on the switch and turning off the switch. You hear the fans. You don't hear the fans. It's so quiet in there that all you hear is, the punches coming at you, or skipping punches, or the pounding of the leather against your body. You just hear those type of things, and then all of a sudden you hear the large crowd cheering, and it's incredible. It's like in the movies, like you watch some boxing movies, The Raging Bull or something, but it's like that. You hear it, and you don't hear it. It's so loud, and then you don't hear anything. It's so peaceful. It's crazy.
Now, some of my friends have been to boxing matches where they've sat in the first 4 to 5 rows, and they say they're so close they can feel the punches. From a boxer's,
yeah,
that's what they say. It's almost like they're in the fight themselves. And from a boxer's perspective, you mentioned it being quiet. Are you able to ever hear the chatter among the fans in those first 4 or 5 rows?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of times when you can hear the announcers talking about, oh, he landed a good right hand, or I think we think he's hurt. I got hit one time and someone else said that they thought I was hurt, and I looked back like, no, I'm not. I looked back at the announcer like, I'm not hurt, not even close. But that type of stuff. But you hear them talking, and sometimes you hear them say good things about you, you hear them say bad things about you, but it only comes and goes out of the way. It's only when it's not very, something's not happening during the fight, because when it's really happening, you don't hear anything but the punches and the opponent throwing you.
You remind me of a Floyd Mayweather fight in 2005, I believe, January 2005, where Jim Lampley, Floyd had such dominance over his opponent that Jim Lampley and Roy Jones were doing the announcing, and they just started talking about NFL picks, and Floyd looked over and answered their questions. So,
I remember that.
That's insane to be able to hear the announcers and then to kind of look back and question them. So that's good stuff right there. I wanted to talk about the boxing game in general, because the heavyweight division is such a mess. You have 2 brothers that have the 3 titles. They're not going to fight each other, so you won't have a unified division. And the more exciting fights, as they all have been pretty much throughout history, south of 160 pretty much. Is there a particular fighter that you like? Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, Amir Khan? Who's the guy that you like to watch right now?
Obviously, everyone likes to watch Manny Pacquiao, but one of my favorite fighters that I love to watch because of his style and his technique, and he does it. I think he's probably the best technician in boxing today. The best, he does everything right. He's a great fighter. Is Marquez, Juan Manny Marquez. He's probably the best technician of any fighter out there right now. There's also Jorge Linares, the guy that's from Japan that's now back in California. He's a great technician. If guys want to watch fights and learn from fights, those are incredible fighters to learn from. Now, Manny Pacquiao is a great fighter. He's a southpaw. Southpaws hate fighting southpaws. The right-handed fighters hate fighting southpaws because everything's backwards to them.
Right.
And Manny's a great fighter, strong, but it's more his speed and power than his technique, because you see him, he's off batting sometimes. He throws wild at times, but he's a great fighter. But he's just so strong that he makes up for it. He has strong legs. But I think the best fighter, pound for pound right now, technique-wise, not on the ratings or anything like that, but it's probably Juan Manny Marquez. And look what he did with Pacquiao. He fought him twice. The first one was a draw, and then there's so many people who believe that he won the second fight. A lot of fighters believe that.
Sorry, go ahead.
But I think now when they fight the third time, I think Manny's going to be too strong and too young for Marquez now.
You touched about something interesting, that a lot of people will think that one boxer wins and the judges have the other way, and sometimes they're the only 3 guys in the whole arena that see the fight that way. We saw a pretty bad decision a few weeks ago in the Williams fight. Were you ever a part of a fight that you just thought, I can't believe the decision went that way, and you were just shocked that it happened that way?
Well, yeah, it was. I had been. It was my 15th fight. I fought this guy named Edwin Pee Wee Parker, and he was a southpaw. It was my 15th fight. It was my first main event in San Antonio. It was televised. And I think what happens is judges sometimes say, well, I'm not gonna play the hometown judge. So I'm gonna go the opposite way, and I fairly beat this guy. Pretty simple. Pretty easy, and it turned out to be a draw. And we couldn't believe it. We were like, wow. But that's what happens. Sometimes judges say, I'm not gonna be the guy that goes just for the hometown guy. I'm gonna go the opposite way and not show my colors or whatever it is. I don't know, but it turned out to be a draw, which was kind of funny at first.
Kind of the weird parts of the sport that you have 2 warriors go in and they fight their heart out for 12 rounds, and it's all up to 3 guys, and 3 guys sometimes are picked randomly, and they just see it a certain way, and it's kind of the way it goes. It's a weird situation.
Well, here's another one that I had. I fought Juan Lozcano in New Jersey, and I fought him after the fight. It was on Showtime. They had the online voting on Showtime. People had me winning 10-0 online. They had me winning online voting. People had me winning 10-0 on the fight, 10 rounds, and they gave him the fight.
Yeah, I've seen a few fights like that where your jaw drops. I would say, obviously, Holyfield Lewis, the heavyweight title, when that was a draw, that was a pretty bad one. As a fan watching a fight, have you ever seen some fights, or which fights have you seen where you go, wow, that's another bad decision out there?
I think there's been so many of them, but I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Or when Paul Williams beat Sergio Martinez the first time.
Right. That was also questionable.
That was terrible.
And now, before we let you go, a couple last questions here. We talked about your more impressive victories. I want to ask, because, again, you've been in the ring against some of the best, De La Hoya, Sugar Shane Mosley, Mickey Ward, Arturo Gatti as well, Ivan Robinson. Of all the fighters you fought, who do you think is the best fighter that you've ever fought?
Easily Oscar De La Hoya.
Oscar De La Hoya, okay. And you fought him at his prime.
He's the only guy that really dominated me, and that was just his size and power. Any guy that beat me was just really too big and too strong for me. Shane Mosley, they gave me 3 weeks to fight him, and I had to drop 17 pounds in 3 weeks. I wish I would have had more time. Wow. Not saying I would have beaten him, but I would have gone the distance with him and done much better than what I did. I actually gave him a lot of trouble early on, but it was just, too much weight too soon and not enough time to get ready. But of the fighters that I wish I would have had again at my prime was Arturo Gatti. We tried fighting him at 130 pounds, 135 pounds, and they never would fight me. But they fought me at 140 when I was already 38 years old. I kind of had to work my way up and get a chance to fight him. And they did, but, that was my last fight. I was already too old and too beat up by that time. Fighting 20 years total, and it was. But he's a great fighter. He changed his technique completely on me. He boxed a lot, but we expected him to slug, and he came out with a great game plan and boxed me.
Yeah, Gatti.
His reach and distance and size. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Gatti kind of realized that all those wars took the toll on him. So when he went more to a boxer, it was a little easier for him, right?
Yeah, exactly. Those things catch up to you, and miraculously that he was able to have as long as a career he did, considering that he fought that way for so many years. Matter of fact, even when he retired, people were saying that he was having double vision or he couldn't see well, that his hearing was going bad. That's what I hear. I can't prove any of that, but that's what people are saying.
Yeah, and it's obviously what happened to was a shame, but we still have the fond memories of him. Obviously, fought you in the Ward trilogy and the Ivan Robinson 2 fights, and he was certainly a very entertaining fighter, to say the least. Now, James, last question before I let you go. Tell the folks out there, because you're very active now in your life. What's a way they can kind of learn more about you? Go to your website, get involved with what you're doing. Tell the folks what you're doing right now in your life.
Well, I have a website that needs to be updated, obviously, but I have a boxing fitness gym in San Antonio, and I'm getting ready to open my second one with over 130, 40 people. I have a Miracle League, which is a baseball league for special needs kids. We have over 200 kids that get to play baseball like anyone else. We had to build a special field for them that was over $1 million, so they can roll their wheelchairs and walkers and, just to be able to be a kid and to play baseball, whether they're mentally or physically handicapped. We let them play baseball.
Wow, that's touching to hear. That's just such a great charity, and all the power to you in doing that. It's really a wonderful thing. Well, I gotta tell you, you know what, Jesse James, we had you on for 27 minutes. It really wasn't long enough. I wish we had more time, but we have to put on another guest. We've got to do this again real soon. I hope you come back on the show another time.
Well, anytime you guys call me, I'll be happy to, and fill people in about the fight game and what's going on, and who I think are the best fighters, pound for pound, or anything you guys want to ask. You guys are great.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Jesse James, the former champion of the world. Thanks so much for being on Lewis Live.
All right, thank you for having me, guys.